in general, we're at a very interesting time in society because now there's a super intelligence that exists that's not in my brain or your brain. It exists in the space in between. And
Hmm.
that coupled with people's like purpose and like the piece I keep talking about of identifying what you care about and pursuing that vertical matters a lot. Because if we can raise people to have that deep sense of humanity, to want to solve these problems in the sectors, and combine that with AI skills, I think that we can achieve a lot as a society. So I'm very excited about this. So I've worked in education for about 12 years now, and in education, personalized tutoring was always the holy grail. We were like, if we can accomplish this, things will become so much easier for learners around the world. And
Hmm.
I think that with ChatGPT, we have accomplished it. I have a personalized tutor that I talk to all day, every day. ChatGPT knows about the projects I'm working on, like the aspirations I have for my career, the skills I'm working on, and it keeps providing me feedback. And I think that everyone should be taking advantage of this and just kind of building their own support system with ChatGPT. And so some of the ways that I use it are like this use case actually an MBA student explained to me, which I think is very helpful for everyone, is that they have a chat thread with ChatGPT called Talk Like an Executive, where they keep copy pasting emails that they're writing into the chat thread, and it helps elevate their language to sound like an executive's. And this is like such a nice like hack almost at ChatGPT, but it helps elevate all the communication people write. So like these kind of examples, or when I work on projects, it remembers the past projects I did and helps build upon them. So I
Hmm.
think as a knowledge worker, it's like an essential tool that people need to have. And being comfortable talking to ChatGPT and articulating what project you're working on and where it can support is a super essential skill people need to have. Something I read on Twitter, which I really resonated with, was that it's not AI that's going to take your job. It's someone who knows how to use AI well. And
Hmm.
so, in order to prepare for your job in the future, I think just being able to figure out how to use AI to do better as a knowledge worker is going to become important. There is a class at Harvard Business School that a professor named Jay Cook teaches. It's focused on digital marketing. And he's like, digital marketing rules won't change, but what's going to happen is that every step of the way, you need to involve more AI. So his class he's changed in the way that when you start doing user research, you input all of the information into ChatGPT. It kind of provides like different types of summaries that you're able to utilize. When you build an ad campaign, you can scrape the web and create new like assets with ChatGPT. You can create new social images with ChatGPT. Basically, every step he involves that kind of product. And it doesn't have to be ChatGPT, it can be any AI product that you're interested in. But the idea is think about areas where you can streamline your work with AI and thus be able to produce more work faster or become more creative with that, like kind of ideate with it. I love using it as a thought partner. When I go back and forth on different types of exercises, I'm like, this is the type of project I'm thinking of building. How can I elevate my thinking? Or
Yeah.
like, this is like my aspiration. What can be a bigger scope of work that I can take on? And use ChatGPT as a leverage to broaden those thoughts. So I think this concern, I understand that, but it's similar to, I think, the skill that previous generations learned about how to use encyclopedias to find information. And we all obviously were the Google era and we were able to find it much more quickly. So basically, ChatGPT is just enabling us to engage with knowledge in a very different way, in a much deeper conversational way. And I think as a skill, that's really important to pick up because, like prompt engineering, people keep asking whether that's a skill that should be taught or not. I think behind that, there's like a deeper question that needs to be answered and taught, which is how do you articulate what you're looking for effectively? And the ability to communicate that is super important. One really interesting example here is there's a professor at Wharton who was talking to me about like how he's changing his class assignments. He's like, Sia, what is the value of an essay? The value of an essay is not actually in its output. It's in the critical thinking and communication skills that go into assembling a good essay. So instead, how he's changed his class, which used to have a final assignment of an essay, is that students now use ChatGPT and he measures the number of prompts it takes students to get to an essay that they're satisfied with. Some students are so good at prompt engineering that it takes like two prompts and they have a pretty great essay. And other students have to go back and forth 19 or 20 times to get to an essay that they're happy with. So what he measures now is like a person's ability to communicate effectively on what they're looking for. And so I think this is a skill everyone needs to build. It's something that you can actually just get better at by communicating more with ChatGPT or otherwise, and getting closer and closer to what output you're looking for. A
Mhm.
different professor told me he spends 1 hour prompting, but it
Mhm.
solves a 9 hour project for him instantly when he does that. So
Wow.
just figure out how to keep practicing that and get it better at communicating. So when I was 22, I would write emails and I would make all my friends read them and be like, does this sound good enough to send to this recruiter when I was like interviewing for my first job after college? And that's something I think a lot of people can resonate with. We used to get feedback from our peers. But now we have like a super peer in that mix,
Yeah.
ChatGPT, which you can talk to about this communication. But not only that, you can also talk to ChatGPT about how you can get better at asking questions or articulating what you're looking for from ChatGPT. Like just have that conversation as if you're talking to a mentor or a peer. And then also like find examples like what ChatGPT, like when it gets good is when you can provide information. So copy
Mhm.
paste like different questions you've asked in the past or copy paste emails you've done in the past and be like, what do you think I can do to strengthen my skills here? And learn with that. A student was telling me that they didn't know SQL at all when they started a job in finance over the summer, and they just worked with ChatGPT all summer to get better at SQL, and by the end they were really good. So use this as like I'm actually very vulnerable with my instance of ChatGPT. I tell it the truth. I'm like, this is the project I'm building. This is who I'm delivering it to. This is their personality type. This is my personality type. What do you think I can do better? So be
At
very
this point, your AI knows better than you yourself know yourself, right?
so we're giving it to the manager again. We need to prepare this way. So it's just
Right.
like be very real with it because that's how you'll get the best outcomes. So I think the very first step is to identify a sector that you're passionate about or the sector that you've been working in. Because of how much talent exists and the different types of roles that are emerging, you need to have a very clear narrative of your career path and how it fits into a new company now. So, like that subject matter expertise matters a lot. So, for people who are early career, I actually recommend quickly experimenting to find a cause that you care about. For me, I stumbled into education at 18, but for a lot of other friends, they tried out a couple of different sectors and were like, okay, this is what I care about. So get that piece early and then start building a narrative around that. Because AI is a technology and a suite of other technologies, but your ability to present your career path as someone who cares about the product or the mission and then can leverage different types of technology to advance their goals in the career matter a lot.
Mhm.
So I would recommend crafting the story. Like that's the story I made to OpenAI and to Amazon and to other companies I worked at in the past, being like, this is the sector I care about. This is what I think this company can do. And these are the skills I can bring. And these are the skills I can learn in this role. And make that story very clear to the recruiters that you talk to. And regarding whether to get into AI or not, an investor I really admire, Jeffrey Busgang, who's actually a professor at Harvard as well, writes about how all companies are going to be AI native in the future. Like this is not something that we can kind of avoid, and it's
Yeah.
something that we should just embrace and kind of leverage to become more productive. So I'll actually take this answer back a couple years. It's like, as I mentioned, I've worked in education for a while, and almost every role that I've had was actually like created for me in some ways. The companies at Udacity, Springboard, GSV, and how this happened. And it doesn't happen all the time because there are hundreds of other companies I must have applied to that didn't create those roles for me. So this is not like a foolproof method. But I think the best way to do this is to first of all deeply understand the company. When I was in college, I studied so much about Udacity, which was an emerging education company at that time in 2014, 2015. And it was like ushering in the year of the MOOCs, the online courses that were taking off at that time. And so I studied deeply about the company. I got to know the people, and I applied for a role that wasn't a relevant fit, but it was like the one that I was qualified for at that time. It was like a computer science instructor like role, and I wasn't great to be a computer science instructor, but I used that time to get to know the team more and be able to kind of position where I could add value. I'm like, I'm scrappy, I'm young, I can put in all these hours to do all of these different types of projects within the company. And so
Mhm.
being able to showcase that fit very obviously mattered a lot. And in the years since, I've spent a lot of time doing that pre-work. Like I create all sorts of like what they call assessments now in the recruiting process, but I do that beforehand. I'm like, this is where like I can add value. So being like invested in the company that you care about and being able to tell that story in a very clear way to them matters a lot. So taking a step back, like have clarity on your own career narrative, create a lot of content around that. Like I wrote a lot of like thought leadership pieces online. I wrote a lot of like deep research insights into companies I cared about, and then position where you can add value and communicate that clearly to the recruiting team, and also build a community around you and for the sector. So even when I was 22, I was bringing all these education people who were also 22 at that time together, and we would like talk about the sector. We'd kind of grow that community out to figure out areas where we can add value to that sector. And now my friends have all grown up and done all these different things in the sector too, which is like, I mean, that network helps you land jobs much better than like cold applying online. And
Yeah.
if you don't have a community, to start one or join one to help move that forward. The roles that I'm seeing right now in the industry, this might change, but the roles I'm seeing right now are very hyper personalized. So they're looking for someone who has that sector experience and that skill set. And the reason that those two are distinguished is because that sector experience just helps you leverage those specific nuances of an industry much more effectively for your company. And my gut says that roles will continue staying that hyper personalized because we're also making education hyper personalized for students. So I really think that industry is going to stay very specific. So my recommendation is to pick a vertical, go very deep, identify all the major companies that you might be interested in that vertical, build those relationships, and then try to land those jobs. I deeply understand this problem. Like it's something that education and as an industry has been trying to fight for so long, being like degrees should not be the bar. So I deeply resonate with this. But the truth is that we can't change these job descriptions, right? Like if that's what they want, that's what they want. What I do recommend in terms of getting ahead and still being able to land a great job that might not be this job is to figure out how to showcase your expertise in different ways without that traditional experience. So when I was in college, I knew that I wanted such a different type of job in education that they like don't recruit from my university for that role. So I'm like, how can I position myself to be that unique? So I published a book about America's job skills gap. I built a startup. I showcased my product skills in that small startup that we ran. And then I came back and I'm like, hey, this is why I should do product in education because I have that expertise and I have this, even though I'm 21, 22 at this time.
Mhm.
So I think the same holds now. Build very unique projects, build the right type of community, build the right types of thought leadership pieces. And this is something that anyone has the tools to do immediately. And that will show the depth of your knowledge and experiences that you're able to then communicate to land a role which might be relevant for your interests. I also don't think that even now all companies are requiring this because it's impossible to fill
Right.
those jobs if this is the requirement for all companies. So I
Sure.
think broadening the search while maintaining like that expertise in the sector that you're able to showcase is going to be super important even now. But yes, over time there will be more entry level jobs hopefully. And like if they're not, then just figure out how to up level those years faster. I was a high school journalist, so all my answers will come from that lens. But I think that the best types of ways to explore are by talking to a lot of people and things that you find interesting. And the way high school students should do that is by, first of all, using AI to identify the questions and the types of people to talk to. Reach out to them and also don't try to use one on one time because I've realized that people are too busy to provide one on one advice nowadays. So instead, be like, can you come talk to my class about this? And give them a platform that your like school or your community offers. Because then they'll be really excited to be able to talk to 30 students or 60 students and you'll get the opportunity to ask questions and learn about different segments. And I
Mm.
think that becomes really powerful. When I was writing my book, I cold emailed some really famous people who are way out of my league, like a Nobel laureate, a Supreme Court attorney. But instead of being like, let's have one on one conversations, I'm like, I want to explain this to my entire class of like 1,200 students. How can we do that? And they loved that platform, which I was able to give them as a student. And I highly recommend students use that to just discover interesting things and find out what they're passionate about. What are the use cases for the future of our careers? Yeah, so I spend a lot of time in the education domain, so thinking about the future of universities and what that looks like.
Mhm.
So I think that I mean, I'm currently thinking about AI native universities is that there will be so many different AI touch points across the university campus that students will engage with knowledge in different ways throughout the campus. So when you come to campus, there'll be some sort of orientation GPT that lets you ask questions such as like, how do I change my roommate? Or where is the best pizza spot in town? Like being able to converse with the campus's knowledge in an orientation GPT. Then
Mm-hmm.
you're going to come into classrooms where your professors will have uploaded your course materials and you can have conversations with the course materials. One of my favorite examples is that a business school professor uploaded his case studies, and now students can ask questions like which CEO handled layoffs well? And it pulls from that repository of information and and provides those exact answers. So that's super fascinating. You'll go
Mm-hmm.
into career services where you'll like talk about like with alumni and be able to kind of refine your message that way. And finally in student clubs. So basically there will be so many different AI touch points which will seamlessly move between each other as students like go through their college journey. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
really excited about that. So those are some of the use cases we're seeing. And what I'm really excited about is just this new way to talk knowledge. Absolutely. And we get a lot of requests for this kind of collaboration because obviously people are working together in these projects. Our OpenAI Canvas product is probably our first foray into collaborative tools, which lets you actually work with other people side by side and help kind of collaborate on different initiatives. But I think it's something that we'll keep getting better at. And right now, how I'm seeing it is that professors are creating student groups and making ChatGPT like the seventh group member in some ways and letting students engage with a custom GPT together. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
shareability is interesting, but I think this is something that there's a lot of scope for growth in.